Director General of the National Automotive Design and Development Council, Engineer Jelani Aliyu, has said that the agency would promote the adoption, development, manufacturing, and usage of advanced technology in the nation's automotive sector. He spoke at the recent commissioning of the first solar-powered electric vehicle charging station in Lagos, pilot project in collaboration with the University of Lagos. And he said this has become very important because the world can no longer afford to continue polluting the environment through the use of fossil fuels and its attendant emission of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and methane. All right, Ugo Aliogo joins us now. He's, of course, a public policy analyst, mostly focused on Nigeria. But Ugo, I'm going to make you talk about Zambia. Let's put up Zambia's debt. Ugo, yes. Do you think, let's get the debt up there now. Zambia's gross government debt to GDP. Yes. Ugo, look at that. 117%.
Yes.
As a government debt as a percentage of GDP.
Yes.
Do you think that the new president, or let's assume you are the new president of Zambia. Yes. I would vote for you, by the way. Do you think that they can possibly restructure the debts in this southern African nation and reduce it to where things can possibly get better moving forward? What do you think?
Yes, there's hope for fixing the debt.
Yeah.
You know, I think our greatest problem in Africa is that once we have debt issues, we run to the big brother, World Bank.
Yes, we do.
And World Bank will give you their policy
conditions.
Very beautiful. They will tell you how to implement, how to position your economy. You know, but again, when we implement some of these policies, it lands us like some sort of a bondage that we can't come out.
Yeah.
So when you borrow, you can't pay back. You keep borrowing. Because
you're getting deeper and deeper.
You keep borrowing because, and then they will tell you economic reforms that you can implement that will help to reposition your country. You know, economic growth, which is beautiful on the surface, very beautiful. Whether it's the implementation that is a problem for African countries, or if we implement these policies, it doesn't favor us. I do not know where the challenge is. And the challenge is, again, for African nations, is that we have failed to look inwards.
Okay.
We have natural resources.
Like Zambia. Zambia is blessed with copper.
That's what I'm saying. We have solid minerals.
Right.
Why don't we tap into some of these things? Invest. Let me give you an instance. Ethiopia, they are into shoe production.
Yes.
Ethiopia said, they told the Chinese, come and establish these factories in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
And then they established the factories, and then they started producing. And today they export some of their products to Gucci and Louis and
Louis Vuitton and all
of that. Yeah. So they export. So it's for now Zambia to look inwards. Because this trend of borrowing from the big brother, the World Bank, IMF, it's a long history that has governed many African nations, including Nigeria.
Right.
So borrowing again from World Bank may not be the necessary step. I think this is the time for them to look inwards. How do we address this? Inwards. So are we looking at tapping into maybe investing in our economic natural resources? What are we going to do inwards? Let's leave out. There are many economies that developed without assistance from the World Bank.
True.
Without assistance from IMF.
Very true.
The Asian Tigers, they developed without assistance from the IMF and from the World Bank. So why do we go cap in hand to the World Bank always?
I get you.
As if it's the miracle worker.
Well, there is COVID, though. COVID, hits a lot of African nations, the nations around the world, so there's no money right now.
If you say African nations, it also hits Europe. In fact, Europe was the worst hit. And Europe has come, they are bouncing back. The economies are bouncing back.
Well, they have money.
Yes, they have money. We have the resources in Africa.
Right. I get you.
We have the resources. So we have to look inwards. We should stop seeing World Bank, IMF as the last resort, as the last hope.
You've talked a lot, Ugo, about an enabling business environment, And since I want to tie this to you talking about Zambia looking inwards, we have some images there of, I think it's copper trucks or whatever at mining centers. The copper producers in Zambia have said that taxes are too high, the business environment is not favorable to them. So this new president, Hichilema, who is now going to be talking to the IMF, he's also expected to come to the table to talk to the copper producers in Zambia to be able to chart a better way forward.
Exactly.
So are you optimistic that can happen?
Yes, I'm optimistic that can happen. Again, when he decides to have these meetings, there should be negotiations on better working conditions. There should be negotiations on taxations. There should be negotiations on how to improve the business environment. And then we should look in production. So it's not a question of mining. It's not a question of getting these raw materials or these solid minerals and then exporting to the Western world. We should look at producing in Africa and then export. Now we have African continental free trade. So we can say within the African...
You've been very optimistic about
yes, I'm very optimistic about Africa. So what is aimed... African continental free trade is going to be one of the biggest economic blocks. It's going to make Africa one of the biggest economic blocks across the world.
What about infrastructure challenges? That's in a rosy, optimistic field where there's no bottlenecks to trade.
If infrastructure challenges, yes, is an issue facing African nations. But a committed government can address it. I talked about tourism last week, about Rwanda, what Rwanda is doing.
And the messy
t-shirt.
Yes,
and the messy t-shirt. What Rwanda is doing to drive tourism. The tourism in Rwanda, they are building their market, the tourism market in Rwanda, and the potential is high. There's so much investment going to that, but there's so much funding. You know, so if they can develop copper, build a strong market around that space, and then they'll have something for exports. Toyota just opened their factory in Ghana. So what it means is that Ghana is going to be having brand new cars.
Which they will export to other nations.
Which they will export to other African nations. So that will give a lot of bring a lot of economic growth, provide jobs, drive investments. And then it means that they're not going to be spending their revenue on importing cars from Japan.
Good point. That's a good point.
So they have a comparative advantage, something they're going to bring in after. So what is, for the new president, he should decide now to ask, what am I going to bring in for an African continental free trade agreement?
Right.
Our strength is copper. So what are we doing in this line to develop it, to develop the industry from being the agrarian stage where it is to a leader in copper in the world?
Excellent stuff. All right, you mentioned Toyota and cars, so I guess we can segue into Nigeria, the automotive policy, this commitment to electric cars. And we have, I think the images we have there of Governor Sanwo-Olu at a launch of, I think it's the Stallion Group. Yeah, this was back when they had their first electric vehicle produced here, assembled here.
Yes.
What do you make of Nigeria's commitment to? Is electric? Is this too soon, or can we walk and chew gum at the same time? We should be able to, even though we have.
Let me set a little perspective to this. In the 70s, 80s, my late father, God bless his memory, he told me that 70s, 80s, what they were riding in Nigeria were brand new cars. He told me he bought one of his cars for 6,000 naira.
Wow.
Brand new, air conditioned.
Goodness. At that time, the naira was stronger than the dollar.
Naira was stronger.
Yep.
Brand new cars, air conditioned.
Yep.
70s, 80s, that thing continued. Then down 80s, 90s, it dropped.
After discovering...
Our automotive industry, just
Dunlop
dropped.
was here. Yeah.
And then there was Peugeot,
right?
You know, assembling company. There was Dunlop and a lot of, and then it dropped. And then we started using fairly used cars from Europe.
And that's where everything just went.
So everything went
down.
So it's not too. What I'm saying this is that when you said it's not, is whether it's too soon. It's not too soon.
Yeah.
We should have been on this path
a while back.
We'll have the population. We'll have the market. We'll have everything to drive investment in that space. We'll have everything to have brand new cars.
Yeah. But what? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
So continuation of my point.
Yeah.
We can have. It's a step in the right direction. Obviously.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful policy. Again, we'll look at the fundamentals. You don't have steady power.
That's one.
So that's one.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It's a big one.
The biggest one.
You don't have steady power.
Yeah.
And then we need to address the power problem. If we're able to fix the power problem, then we are 70%
of our
way to achieving that dream. And then we'll now look at huge investment. There should be huge investments going into the solar power subsector.
So that's alternative
energy. Yes, alternative energy.
Right.
Because that is where the world is now trending to. Like I said last week, that many countries across the world, they are trying to phase out fuel-used cars to allow fossil fuel, clean energy. So there's going to be huge investments in the solar power subsector.
Okay.
Now, in that subsector, you have entrepreneurs. There's going to be funding. Government is going to provide funding grants in form of loans to support what they are doing. so that, and then we'll now look at production.
Right.
Production of solar power panels, and then inverter batteries. So there's going to be funding. So that will now help us to reduce the demand for imported batteries, solar panels. We'll start production. So these are some of the key fundamentals. And then establishment of solar-powered electric vehicle stations.
The charging stations.
The charging stations.
Right.
And then we will now have to provide grants and funding for universities. So we can have like 3 universities, run pilots. So what government has done so far is pilot phases. So we'll now have universities, give them funding, give them grants, and say, do research on this area, come up with solutions.
Ugo, I have to say, this is a very, very optimistic. You've painted a really great picture here, and you've itemized everything, all the steps. But okay, what about costs? That car, those the vehicles.
Now, when you now talk about costs.
Yeah.
I talked about Ghana.
You did, yes.
What did I say about Ghana? I said Ghana now there's a Toyota assembling company in Ghana.
Yes.
So we could. There's the policy government wants to bring in assembling companies in Nigeria.
Yeah,
we talked about that some time ago.
Yeah.
And then this is now the time to wake up that policy.
Okay.
So there is now a correlation. There is now a synergy.
Yeah.
Because those companies, when they come into Nigeria, they already have a market ready. The ground is already fertile for them to plant and invest. So this is now the time for those companies, the assembling companies like Toyota and what have you, Toyota, Hyundai, Honda, and all of that, to come into Nigeria because the market, now the ease of doing business, a lot of things have been addressed.
What about the issue of steel, Ajaokuta steel, and the whole...
Again, Ajaokuta steel, now is a time to revitalize that steel company.
Okay.
And then I said on this show that if that steel company, according to a research, they said if that company is into full production, it's able to produce 10 million metric tons of steel annually.
Yeah.
That's enough to meet our steel demand as a country, satisfy our steel demand for rail infrastructure and for car production. So all of these are fundamentals. All of these are necessary framework that should be put in place to drive investment across that automotive industry, electric cars.
Ugo, great stuff. This has been very, very fun. We have a minute to go. Any other points you want to add? I think you've covered it, man.
Yes. So not that point. Basically, then again is about policy continuity. That's
another one.
That's the last
we will be here, hopefully, knock on wood, fingers crossed, 2023, to see the new government.
Yes, to see new government.
These things get
define it attractive and then drive investment across that policy line.
Ugo Aliogo, public policy analyst. Ugo, always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for joining us.